Ringworm with Snake Church. Now, 2 years ago we spoke about Hammer of the Witch, which was the first Relapse release for Ringworm. And that album just brought this brand new energy to the band, I felt. Really, whenever I listened to that, and it got onto the top 35 of that year list, and it actually performed fairly well on that list. I wasn't sure if this was an album that could be topped in their catalog. I felt that they had maybe reached their apex, but with Snake Church, they have some pretty big shoes to fill. And this group, which is kind of foundation metalcore, I guess, if you really want to call it that, it's a combination of hardcore. It has a little bit of punk in there. There's some thrash or some speed metal that's tossed in with some of the riffing, and even some of the construction even has that basic element to it. Some of that speed that you get, that speed metal that perhaps was overshadowed a bit by the thrash boom of the 1980s, or basically just made to be one and the same, complementary terms. It's something that makes up this band's overall, mythos, which causes... They're a Relapse Records band. They are going to look for something that's interesting and, something that's unique. And that package is certainly present, not only on Hammer of the Witch from 2 years ago, but on Snake Church this year. I'll leave the link for the Hammer of the Witch review in the description box for you guys to check that one out, because this is a group that you should certainly investigate. See, Snake Church having these huge boots to fill, they want to come out strong, and they do that with the title track, which is 3.5 minutes. Now, this is a band that on this album is going to hover between not even reaching 2 minutes with their tracks, and these are actual tracks. There's no filler here to having their longest cut actually make it to 4.5 minutes, but we'll get to that in a minute. But Snake Church showcases this band's ability. It showcases that Human Furnace is definitely this underrated and underappreciated vocalist, and perhaps is so, considering he's not necessarily going above and beyond the call of duty in order to try to, wow you with some sort of brand new thing. He's not necessarily attempting to showcase, 7 octaves or anything like that. This is just brutal approach. This is just, hardcore screams, yells, just cries, and his, hateful campaign through his lyrics, his call for change or his call for destruction is one that is ever present on each and every one of these tracks. The bass is very thick, and it's something that's complemented by the drums that surround it. And the guitar work is certainly one that can borderline from a very simple riff that gets lost in your head and then emerges, and it won't, it won't let go. It's one of those things that almost, you want to say, earworms you a little bit, but I can already think of a couple riffs from this album, and I'm tempted just to hum them in my head. It's crazy. But then it also goes to the other side, where it's able to rip-roar some pretty quick solos. That speed certainly becomes a factor, and certainly just the overall scope of what this band's imagination is able to reproduce on this album is on display. Now, going into Brotherhood of the Midnight Sun, Fear the Silence, those 2 tracks to follow up Snake Church, again, it's a little bit of a shorter campaign. It's showcasing their need for speed. It's showcasing their need just to sort of break their own necks, playing that hard. But if you think that that's even, a little too fast for you, how about 1 minute and 55 seconds and 1 minute and 48 seconds? That's the Black Light of a Living Ghost, which has a kick-ass solo in it, and really is just, it's speed metal. Fuck everything else, it's speed metal. And Destroy or Create is even quicker than that. The Black Light of the Living Ghost, I really thought was going to be the early highlight, and it really was until I got to Shades of Blue. Shades of Blue is 4.5 minutes long, 4:33, and you might think, uh-oh, with all of that pace, this is really going to come out of nowhere and probably silence the momentum, right? Well, you'd be absolutely wrong. This is one that slows things down. This is one that instead builds and builds and builds, and you know how much I am a sucker for atmosphere, you know how much I am a sucker for great composition, and you know how much I'm a sucker for compositions that are able to really build with layers and overall give you a package that feels complete. And that's exactly what this song is. This is one whose direct approach, whose slower approach, which eventually accelerates over time, delivers on all levels. The Human Furnace, once again, delivers a just absolutely headbang-worthy, vocal performance. You just have great songwriting. It's overall just a well-designed package. And I'm trying to remember, there was a Bad Religion album that had this very same idea, where their main song, or one of their main songs, whatever the album was that had Infected on it. And Infected was really the track that got me, into that whole core idea, because you have a very different sounding album by comparison to this song, which sort of takes things to a different level and approach. That's similar here, obviously, with different styles of music, different levels of heaviness, and just an overall desire to snap your neck off with some of the tracks that surround this one, where it's low and slow to start and picks up its pace as it goes. I thought that some songs off of Hammer of the Witch were the best things I heard from Ringworm. I was wrong. This is probably the best damn Ringworm song that I've ever heard, and it's one that's been on repeat ever since my initial playthroughs of this album, which there have been many. Going into Innocent Blood, The Apparition, and Believer, you would think that perhaps that sudden changeover back to the other style would be a little bit concerning. That 4.5-minute break does absolutely nothing to break the pace, mainly based around its ending. It sort of filters its way directly into Innocent Blood, and then it's off to the races once again. It's back to just that anger and that perpetuated ridiculosity that you've been getting, and it's something that you're starting to love more and more. You're starting to grow and develop an affinity for the occasional guitar break that is, masked around that thick bass that we spoke about, that's masked around that heavy percussion that just gives this a lot of character, and you really, masked around the human furnace just blasting his way through all of these cuts. The Razor and the Knife, which is almost, it just breaks 2.5 minutes, features another one of those such solos, and another terrific performance. Really, this whole entire album could very easily be summed up in probably 10 seconds. Fantastic musical performance, direct songwriting that is able to take, a couple of different weaves to the approach every so often, but overall, just, keeps their foot directly on your throat and continues to stomp. That's the best way that I could describe this in 20 seconds or less, because I kind of, went a little slow with that. Even the bonus cuts are great. Iron Fist is definitely one that should register as a little bit of familiarity to all of you, but Poison is a, real apt finale for this. The real finale of the album is Temple of the Wolves, which really brings everything together in a 2-minute and 18-second long package. But really, if you have the bonus cuts, Poison is one that certainly fulfills, 4.5 minutes nearly. Does it have the same power of Shades of Blue? It does not. However, it's still one that leaves you feeling strong. I really didn't think that Ringworm could top Hammer of the Witch. I really didn't. I thought that album was going to be really the mountain that they were going to have to chase, the rainbow that they had to chase. But they now have a new rainbow. Snake Church has toppled it. And whenever you consider how well Ringworm did in the top 35 of 2014, I'll leave that link down there in the description box as well for you to check out, just so you know. Then I can only imagine what 2016 is going to hold for them. Now, they have some heavier competition this year, I believe, but damn, this is like a 90 out of 100. This is a 9 out of 10. There's very few flaws about this album. And really, the main flaw that I found is not so much a flaw as it is just, comical. I hate it whenever bands overstay their welcome, but this was a band, and this is an album in Snake Church by Ringworm, where I was invited that. But I want to know what you guys think about this album. What did you guys think about Snake Church by Ringworm if you've gotten the chance to check it out? Let me know in the comments below. And for those of you who don't know this name, for those of you who this is your first exposure and your first experience, do yourself a favor and check this one out. And once you do, come back to this album, come back to this review, and tell me what you thought in the comments below. My name is coverkillernation, and we are far from done this weekend. We are far from done. We have streams to do, we have more albums to talk about, we have a lot more fun to have. So stick around, and if this is your first exposure to this channel, hit that subscribe button. You're not going to regret it. I guarantee it. Take care.